So when you're making a transition and you're an athlete or a high performer or a world-class athlete or a celebrity or singer or entertainer, and your star has faded, you now have a situation that you have to come to terms with. Were you prepared for the end? Did you ever contemplate that this was going to come to an end sometime? Maybe gradually or maybe suddenly, but it was going to end. You saw someone else's career end, so that should have sent some kind of bell off in your head, right? That, ooh, that could be me. No, that would never be me. I ain't going out like that. But that's how, no, dude, that's going to be you one day. That's where we all are. So when you start talking about going back into someone to make them think about, how'd you get here? Why are we having this conversation about transition? Because there was no preparation. There was no contemplation. And there's no plan.
Welcome to Unbound. Conversations about what happens when the version of you that made you successful is no longer enough. I'm Lori Darley, and I work with high performers, athletes, executives, creators who are facing the question, who am I when I'm not that anymore? Because success doesn't prepare you for what comes next. Today's conversation is about discovering who you are beyond what you do. Welcome to the Unbound podcast, everybody. I'm Lori Darley, and I have spent 25 years helping people figure out who they really truly are when what defined them has gone. It's evaporated. And I'm here today with Stefan Johnson. And Stefan is a longtime friend. We go back a ways. And Stefan, I just want to welcome you here. I'm so excited we're here together.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Thank you. And man, when you say you spent 25 years helping people figure it out, I've spent 25 years trying to figure it out.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
This is us figuring it out.
Hey, there's a saying in the Bible that says, remove the beam from your own eyes before you attempt to remove the splinter from your brother's eye. So I am the guy that's walking around with the big beam in his eye, and I'm, for some reason, have spent my whole life trying to say, hey, but you got a splinter in your eye. The people who I think I reached and had the most success with were the people who were more willing to accept that there was something that needed to be fixed. The guys and the people who I met they're like, who are you to tell me that I'm missing anything? You have not gained the right or earned the right to tell me how to fix whatever's going on in my life. And that's the whole thing about this helping people, right? You can pull over and try to help someone on the side of the road.
It's a catch-22 in many ways, isn't it?
100%,
right?
100%.
Yeah, because sometimes helping feels like that you have actually disempowered them. But we're just getting way ahead of ourselves here. For the folks who don't know you, right? What would you want to share with them? What would you want them to know about who you are?
The era that we live in now, because everything is so fast and everybody wants everything instantaneous. We as Americans, everything is so rushed. Telling people about who you are and what you do, I think it's overkill. I think if you are truly someone, you're Googleable. Google me, Stefan Johnson. You can get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I can tell you whatever I want to tell you, and that's what I want you to hear. But you learn over time to listen to what people don't say. It speaks far louder than what they're actually telling you and has more credibility. So Stefan Johnson is a guy who was from East Texas, born in East Texas, loved nature, didn't have a lot of things to choose from, right, on what you're going to do. And I'm one of those kids that grew up in the 60s. I was born in the 60s. So Civil Rights Act passed in 1966. People who've been sleeping under a rock. If you didn't hear, Black people were going through quite a bit during that time. But,
absolutely.
if you break down each decade, the woman that raised me, along with my mother and so many other women, was born in 1870. She died my junior year at LSU. She was 114. But can you imagine 1870? Let's just break it down. 1870.
Don't ask me to do the math, man.
1880, she's 1880, she's 10. Civil War ended in 1865. So imagine what she's going through, right? 1890, she's 20 years old. What
Yeah.
what kind of opportunities are out there now for a young Black woman at 19 years old? 1800, she's 30. 1910, 40, 1920, 50. Great,
That's a lot of
great,
history.
great depression. So if you just break it all down, my history, my family alone, if you just went back in time. So my trademark and my call to arms is a trademark God gave me to go and register is Beyond the Game. And Beyond the Game is about Hattie Sears Parker. It's not about Stefan Johnson making it to the NBA. It's about Hattie Sears Parker making it through all those decades for me to make it to this world, right? So it's a
Mm.
bigger story, and people talk
Mm.
about legacy and all that, and we're starting a legacy. I can't take credit for the legacy that I'm a part of because there was so many people that had to go through so much just for me to even, crack a womb and
Yeah.
peek out of the womb, right?
Yeah,
Much
you're
less try to
standing on
survive.
some powerful shoulders, and I love the way that you kind of framed that as none of us would be here had we not been preceded by people who really went through it, and at every level, right? I mean, life is a lot of suffering, no matter where your station is, because if your circumstances around you aren't causing your suffering, the suffering in our heads is, it can be debilitating sometimes. So I appreciate you being here, the Beyond the Game. Probably most people, when they hear that though, and they know Stefan Johnson as the former NBA Clippers player, they see that as an opportunity for people who have identified with a role for their entire lives. Like for me, I'm just going to share a little bit about me for just a teeny weeny bit.
Oh, please.
Ever since I was 4, I knew where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on stages, and I wanted to be a ballerina and all the things. And I had a chance to do that. I mean, I had a lot of privilege, and I was able to do that. And it was a lot of discipline. I learned a lot of things until that world ended. And I don't know what that was like for you, but for me, it meant, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want. I don't know what legacy I want to create for the people whose lives I've touched. I don't have kids, right? But I wanted to create something that was bigger than me. And yet there was that moment of who am I? And I'm kind of curious what that was like for you when,
It's the same for everyone. If you reach the end of yourself and whatever it is you perceive yourself whatever you perceive
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
to
yeah,
be, to be
yeah,
what you perceive yourself to be and not who you are. So the guys who are more grounded and well balanced and have come from backgrounds where they have mentors and strong people in their lives, it's ingrained in them that you are a who. So if this sports thing falls apart or whatever else happens, you don't get education or you don't get rich or you don't get anything that you thought was happening. Who are you as a person? What kind of character and what kind of morals, what kind of values? So we're all in the same boat. It's an existential crisis that every human being goes through.
absolutely.
And when you face it and you face it honestly, you make progress.
Mm,
Okay, when you face it with the little white lies and the half truths and the people pleaser mentality and the people pleasers around you and the people who are kissing up to you and all that because maybe you had some success but it's no longer there. Now you see people for who they truly see you as.
hmm
And if you were what and that what has changed, they're going to change. But if you are who, you've already identified who's there for what and
mm,
who's there for
mm.
who.
Yeah, yeah. So who and what were you?
That's that. Whoo, boy, that's a mouthful right there. Who and what was I? Okay. That takes us down a pretty deep rabbit hole, right? So what I've learned in being around people like yourself, I don't have to identify as a what. Now I know you are in that space, and you made a statement the other day. Uh, and it never left my head. You said, I want to make a change in the world. I want to make a difference in the world. And without money, it's practically impossible. And I was like,
What?
wow, that is so
Mm,
profound because when you look at what it takes to move people in this world, and you go back to the beginning of time, right? As far as back as you can go, resources and commerce was all based on, you got to have something like currency or some type of currency to exchange for labor or services or whatever else.
yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't like it the way you
Well,
said it.
and I don't like the context that it is right now, because that was really inside of this idea that when we're in obscurity and the opportunities to make a difference in people's lives, which, listen, I believe I've made a difference in people's lives. I really believe that. But in terms of creating something that would gather and, somebody like, we were talking about Tony Robbins yesterday.
Huh?
Here's somebody who has done both, right? Right. He's built a huge following, and many might call him a guru. Other people will say he's a very, very successful businessman. He's all of those things and so much more. And it's not like that this is about idolizing Tony Robbins, but it is about impact, right? My company's mission was elevate awareness and maximize impact. And that's really true for me right now. It's not about getting on a hamster wheel and trying to just make all this money. It's really about how can I do that, be in integrity, be in alignment with what's most important to me, which are my values, love, connection, peace, and positivity. Those kinds of things are the things that I hang my hat on. And I'm glad that you push back on that, because I think it's a contextual statement that when you take it out of context, it can be kind of tricky. Does
Yeah,
that make
well,
sense?
it does. It does. Okay, I didn't like the way it came out, but it was like I said, can you embrace the truth, or you want somebody to candy coat some lie
No,
so you can get it down, right? So you can swallow it. The
no.
truth sometimes hurts, and it's very painful that I looked around and I said all the things I'm trying to do and all the things I want to do and all the things I've ever done and all the things that I couldn't do and all the things that I was able to do that needed money and didn't need money, you know, started to create this analytics of wow, wow, wow. But the things that move the people that are lost, it's always going to be money.
Mm, mm,
The people who are not as lost, they understand that money is a part of the equation, but it's not the end all be all. It's not a zero sum game for them, right? So the guys and the kids and the people that have come from abject poverty and have never had it, and if I ever get it, there's only one language they speak. Bring me some money and I'll believe you.
yeah,
Show me
yeah,
some money and I
yeah,
will surrender to you, right?
yeah. Well,
I
it
will
is the
whore
part of
myself to you.
well, and it is the world that we've created. None of us is exempt. None of us is innocent in the creation of that. That's why, for me, the work is if money is a symbol of energy, right, and an equal exchange, like that's a different relationship to money than the thing that I have to have, to hoard it, to have as much as I can, versus, the more that I give, the more I shall receive, but not as a bargain with God. It's just how flow works, right? When you are generous, the world starts showing up more generously for you. Man, you're bringing it, man. I love it.
No, I look at money as a drug. I mean, I had a drug problem, so I can be as candid, I can be as aloof, I can do
Yeah,
whatever you need me to do. But I know what a whore looks like, and I know what people who don't like that word and how they cringe when they hear it. And I'm like, well, if I had a little money, would that help the situation? Absolutely. They change their whole demeanor. Everything changes. But if there's no money involved, you got somebody that's totally kind of, I'm not really interested in what you have to say. You're not famous. You're not rich. You're not, and I don't like the way you look, whatever it is, right? You're the wrong color, the wrong sex. So what the road that I've come down, the road less traveled is, okay, where was I along the way? And when I saw where I was, I was repulsed. I was like, gosh, I'm the biggest whore of all. I mean, now I see why Iran calls us the great Satan and the great whore, right? In the Bible, in Revelation, the great whore, right? So this country, this time that we live in, we had more influence over the world for
hmm
longer than anyone. in history that we know of, right? With the technology and the power and the wealth and the might of this country, wow, we built the atom bomb and we
Mm-hmm.
dropped it on a country. Not
Mm-hmm.
once, same
Mm-hmm.
country,
Yeah.
twice. It's only been done
Yeah.
once in history.
Yeah.
And you look at all the other things that we've amassed and all the other things that we've done. And we as Americans have a way of just looking the other way, like we're not barbaric. So when you're talking to somebody about a transition, it's like transitioning from what to what? Are you running from something or running to something? Are you ready to embrace what you truly are so you can know exactly what you need to do to distance yourself from that? Is that what you're trying to do? Transition from? Or you're trying to say, no, I want to stay like the professional athlete status or the celebrity status, the world-class athlete status, the famous status. I love the adoration. I love the praise. I want to be worshiped. So
Yep.
there's a lot of things you're going to find as you delve over into this space with us athletes and just how disconnected we are from ourselves just to be able to perform at the level we perform at. There's a reconnect
Absolutely.
process.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I know I was there. I don't know. When I think back on my career and about how I was basically dirt poor as a dancer, right? I was,
Those are the
teaching.
best dancers. Those are the best. I'm
Well, I
I'll
remember when
always
I
be
was,
a miss.
I
I'm being
remember
silly.
being
I'm being
in the
silly.
Dallas Summer Musicals, and it was
Yeah,
a nice paycheck
yeah.
for
You
a
don't
poor
want a
dancer.
wealthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you survive.
Okay, then you need to explain to the audience dancer because you kind of just threw that out there. Like, there's a lot to be said about dancing in
I
today's.
wasn't a table dancer. Let's go
Okay,
on
all right.
record.
You
Yeah,
wasn't
I
a
was a
stripper. You wasn't a
thank
stripper.
you. Thank you for calling it out. I wasn't sure where we were going here. So let's
That would be a
let's
perfect
ground the
opportunity for us to
audience a little
interject.
bit.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need that's a perfect opportunity when you start editing this to edit in the type of dancing you were doing,
No,
and
I'm going to
everybody's,
tell him
oh
right
my
now.
God, she was
I'm going
really
to
a
tell
real dancer.
I'm going to tell him right now.
I would love to see it. I
I
would
was
love to see it.
classically trained.
Yes.
I was classically trained. I was a modern dancer. I was, in the modern times, it was like lyrical. Like if you'd watch So You Think You Could Dance, it would be kind of like that more expressive barefoot dancing, but
You would be an
very,
Alvin Ailey dancer.
oh yeah. I actually worked with Judith Jamison,
Okay.
who
Okay.
was the star there, and she became the head of Alvin Ailey after he was gone. For anybody here who's watching that's follows culture and art in the arts, but it was the poor person's art form. The stepchild of the arts in this city was dance, the ballet and all that. And so, my values when I was in my 20s and 30s were pretty self-serving, right? I was after all the things, right? The spotlight, the vanity, all of it. And I would say that I was not competitive. Oh, but I was, right? I was really competitive. I call myself a covert competitor, like sort of under the radar. But when Judith Jamison came in and I was determined to be in her cast in her dance, I didn't get it at first, but then there was a misunderstanding. They called one person into the role, but they had intended me, and so I fought like hell for that, right? And it was so satisfying, and so I never worked harder, was never in better shape. I mean, it was the peak probably of that career. And when you work that hard at something, right, and then to have it just kind of like when I actually intentionally walked away from it. I made an agreement with my husband, and I said, if this last concert doesn't break even, we're gonna walk away, and we did.
So
And
would you say that the type of dance, you remember the movie Fame, right? Or the show Fame, TV show, that was a pretty competitive environment always
oh
there.
yeah,
Debbie
yeah,
Allen,
that was
married one of my
Juilliard.
Debbie married one of my old teammates, Norm Nixon, and she has a dance school in Los Angeles, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that competitiveness, is that what you
Yeah,
referring to,
we were a tightly knit group. We'd been, the core of us had been together since we graduated from college, and we lasted for 10 years to just be really super cohesive. The second 10 years I directed the company was, the 10 little Indians dispersed and I was the last one left standing who kept it going. And so it wasn't just about being a dancer and a choreographer. No table dancing, if that's what you wanted to clear up earlier.
no, it's pretty clear that it's not table dancing.
Yeah, yeah, right. And, essentially when that episode ended, there was like a big, big hole. There was no community anymore. I had, I was involved in, sort of the conversations around the arts district. And I was in a very had a very small voice in that, but engaged in that, participated in that sort of social discourse. And people were angry with me when I put the company down. Right. So there was that too. It's like I had somehow left people in limbo, but it couldn't sustain itself anymore. And anyway, all of that story could have traumatized me, right? It could have put me on alert for, well, what am I going to do with my life now? And that's all I'm trying to find out from you. What was that like for you? Because it's real. It's real.
When you talk about poverty and coming from lack, you distance trauma and suffering. You spoke about suffering. Human suffering is the worst thing in the world, right? Human suffering. And it's why Jesus had to come, right? So, okay, so human suffering must be really bad, right? It's a bad deal. So when you start looking at someone who has overcome human suffering, you don't revisit trauma unless you want to relive it and continue it, right? You distance yourself from it as much as you can because you understand you can't live off your championships and your press clippings. You can't go into Walmart or wherever you shop. I'm letting people know I shop at Walmart. I do shop at Whole Foods too occasionally when I can afford it. But anyway, so I can't go in there with my press clippings or my trophies and hope that somebody's going to give me some food for it. It has value, but it's not the currency that they want to trade in. So when you're making a transition and you're an athlete or a high performer or a world-class athlete or a celebrity who are singer or entertainer, and your star has faded, you now have a situation that you have to come to terms with. Were you prepared for the end? Did you ever contemplate that this was going to come to an end sometime? Maybe gradually or maybe suddenly, but it was going to end. You saw someone else's career end, so that should have sent them, some kind of bell off in your head, right? That could be me. No, that will never be me. I ain't going out like that. But that's how the wildebeest thing, right? When the crocodile comes and eats one of them, it's like, well, that poor guy, you know what? It could have, there by the grace of God, go out, right? It could have been you. Okay, so, but nobody wants to admit that when it's happening. That poor sucker, no, dude, that's going to be you one day. So that's when you ask me, Stefan, relive. I'm the wildebeest that didn't get ate right now. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm good. So that's where we all are. So when you start talking about going back into someone to make them think about how'd you get here? Why are we having this conversation about transition? Because there was no preparation. There was no contemplation. And there's no plan for this. So now you're going to come in and you're going to take somebody that it's like trying to teach a baby how to talk, the first day, right? It's like, it's not making the right noise. I'm talking to it, but it's not responding. What's the reason? Baby's just trying to get some air. It's been in a womb all the existence. Now it's like, I just like air, this air feeling on me and this, light, its baby is going through some things. So the transition for that baby is going to take a while. That's what it's like being an athlete, an entertainer, or a wealthy person. And some wealthy people, when they don't have the riches anymore, they'd rather find the highest bridge or show me the human anatomy and a razor blade so I want to end this. I can't live like this. I can't even contemplate living like this. I've made it in my mind that if I ever had to live this way, I would rather die. So when you and I are going to engage certain athletes, you got to go through that minefield with them. And if you don't know, where their trauma was of that day, did the wife leave too? Did she take the children? Did she take all the money? So it's not as easy as, hey, so how'd you? And for me, I was a drug addict. I was locked up, and when it ended for me, they came and got me and took me to intervention, right? I'm like, what are you guys doing? Where am I going? Can I get my
Yeah.
clothes? No, you can't get anything. You come with
I
us,
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
But,
Yeah.
well, a lot of people won't, that because that's one of those things where you say, do I really want to relive that? And you do if you want others to benefit from your failures. And if you no longer identify as that person, right? But I'm so distant from that type of thinking because I have to believe in my mind I was not well.
Yeah.
And if I was not well, to go back to that type of thinking and I wasn't well, that's not healthy either, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't a healthy person. That person
Right.
wasn't rational. That
Right.
person was doing so many
Right.
things that were detrimental to their well-being. So
Yeah.
for me, it's a better way to get me to say, what the transition looked like for me, other than what did I think when I was totally ill-equipped to deal with the transition that was forced upon me.
Got it.
My family was traumatized. I was basically clinically depressed. I was no good, right? I was
Right.
looking for all kind
Right.
of stimulus to get through the moment. And not to mention making excuses and
Yeah.
had some serious vitriol for some people that I thought helped bring it about. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. So I don't want to take athletes there. I want to take them to where I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. Our athletes are high performers or world-class athletes, professionals, anyone dealing with transition, entertainers. I want to talk to them about, here are some options that I found useful and resources I found helpful when I wanted to reestablish myself and make sure my family was okay. I mean, I made sure I was careful to say the thing that would trigger
Mm-hmm.
that I need to make a sacrifice of, and I need to embrace that, yeah, I'm a part of the screw up. My family now is no longer living in a very nice home, and we don't have all the nice cars, and our bank account's depleted, and we owe the IRS, and on and on and on, right?
Right.
I don't have a degree. My wife doesn't have a degree. We have a newborn child. So when these guys are going through, or people are going through, and it doesn't have to be high net worth individuals. It can be someone who's
And
went
yeah.
from, having a great life to now they're homeless
Yeah.
or looking at homelessness.
Yeah.
So transitioning is not something you take lightly. Transitioning is something that you really can make a difference in people's life if they understand that word transitioning is something, now you hear that word, it's about sex change or something like that. What,
I'm glad
you
you brought
know,
that up.
yeah, I'm not talking about doing,
That's not what
no.
we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Let's,
yeah, yeah, yeah. If
yeah,
that's
set
what you're
this.
looking for, though, we'll help you if you're going through something like that. We can help you, as much as we can. But since we don't have any personal firsthand, experience with it, we're going to
Yeah.
have to defer you to somebody else, right?
Yeah. Well, I think about transitions a little bit differently than you do. I kind of like it's almost like the way that we were talking about money a little bit earlier. And I think a lot of people, and by the way, there's no right or wrong. It's just like how we're thinking about stuff, right? I think about transitions that most people relate to it like it's something that happens to you, right? You're in the middle of it. Like you've been laid off, you've been whatever, you're going through menopause.
You've
It's
been
almost
divorced. You've been
right,
divorced.
right. It's like there are things that happen on this planet that feels, like me. I was just hacked, right? And I felt like a victim, and I don't like feeling like a victim, right? And yet I was victimized. And there's a difference between being victimized and walking around in the world with a victim mindset, right? And you and I talked last night, and I'm doing pretty good with it because I've shifted from thinking about it like you know, I was victimized. Yes, I was, but I'm not going to be the one who's going to lose my power as a function of what happened, right? And I did a lot of things, and some of them worked, some of them didn't. It's not over. But the point is, a transition is often this thing that happens, we think, to us. And what the work we're doing here is how do we, you could be looking at the same circumstances, but instead of it's happening to me, what if it's happening for me?
Mm.
What is the opportunity for me to learn here, right? And so I
Preach,
think of
girl.
transition.
Preach. Go ahead, preach.
Well,
preach.
I think that a lot of people, well, look, this is not natural. This does not come naturally. This is why, some coaches and a lot of coaches and consultants are going to be, obsolete here very soon because of AI. But a lot of them who are really, really working and doing really good work are all about people taking ownership. We live in a blaming victim society, right?
Revenge.
And I don't
Revenge.
care what I don't care what economic strata you're in. And it feels worse when you don't have resources. It's like, I feel victimized and in the victim mindset if I'm hungry, right? If I haven't had a good night's sleep, that's a first world problem for sure, right? If I don't have a good night's sleep, oh, poor Lori, she didn't have a good night's sleep, man, right? but I mean, it's hard to deal with the circumstances of life if you are not well resourced. If if I'm diseased, right? If I'm sick, I cannot be responsible for my own care. That's why we have to be together. We have to support each other.
Yeah.
And that's why, a little advertisement here, but that's why the Unbound community is so important, because we are losing touch with our humanity, in my opinion. We're losing touch with what it is. That's why I love working with, high performing athletes and performing artists and people who know what it feels like to be in a body that can read a room, that can extend itself and reach out, that can make connections, both physically, from the heart, from the spirit, from the ground up, right? And that, to me, is the key to this idea of you can go intentionally into a transition without all the baggage, but it takes practice. You have to literally retrain. I have to retrain my brain every day because I have my own, self-talk. I have my own chatter that derails me.
You and I had a conversation once, and, a part of my journey through mental wellness and mental illness and the transition from understanding what they both look like, I had to do something different. I had to do something radical. I had to take the Socratic approach. When I was convinced that I was doing the right thing, I had to ask myself the question at that moment that I'm ready to pull the trigger, the proverbial trigger, God forbid, with all the shootings in the world. Let me find a better way of saying this. Before I launched or set sail, God said, do the opposite. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? For me, his way of doing that made me go back to asking myself the question. When I'm adamant, you said, we as a society are losing touch. He put it in my heart to say, can you just make that a question instead of a statement? And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me to communicate with myself better and others better by just asking a question.
Yep.
I'm not making a statement because that's what people all feel they need to do. Especially athletes. We got to let them know. We got to make a statement. No, let's ask a question.
Yeah.
And the question can be just as profound as a statement, if not more so.
Well, you're describing the coaching, the whole field of coaching right there. And it is primarily driven through absolutely incredibly powerful questions that can get you to the core of who you are. And,
I think at
one point, Stefan, you would ask me, that high performers and people of action and, all the folks that we're talking about here are, they've been to the motivational speeches. That's mostly tell, statement.
Well, yeah.
It's a lot of that, right? And, coaches on the field, they're not so much questions either, right? It's like, go faster. They're challenging you. That's an aspect of, you're better than this, kind of Rocky Balboa kind of, your kind of attitude, right? And there's a place and a time for that. When you're in a transition, though, inquiry, asking questions, to your point, is one of the most powerful ways to get to who what really matters to you, right? If you can let go of the baggage, and that's a whole other thing, right? Letting go of the baggage ain't
Well,
easy.
the question, so then you're back to square one. You got to have the question, is there any baggage? Because when you're trying to get people like me who've already just said, I'm going to disassociate and distance myself from my trauma, who said I got a bag? Well, there's a bag on your shoulders. It's not a bag. I've started calling it something else because of trauma. Okay. So so for me, and my effectiveness and all those people who are out there who are saying that is a kind of weird thing to say. When a young man when he first realizes, I really like the opposite sex or the same sex, I mean, whatever they're going through, you're going to have to try to make an impression on them to make them like you the same way you like them. And Marvin Gaye said it is, I want you and I want you to want me just like I want you,
I love
right?
that.
So
Great. Yeah.
if you want that, then you gotta release some of just what you want and try to think like your audience.
Hmm.
So what I like about what you do and how you do it with me, how you and I have built our
Yeah.
bond is
Yeah.
how you allow me to be me, right?
Yeah.
So that part, and it's not so much how much you allow me to be me, it's how
No, I'm not giving you permission for anything. We're
you
just
don't
being
have
together.
judgment. Well, I'm just trying to get somewhere, and it takes me a little while. I've been banged in the head a few times over the years. So
Me
it's
too.
just the lack of judgment, the acceptance part where people are trying to understand sometimes. And I tell people, I said, don't listen to me trying to figure out if you agree or disagree because you're going to miss me. If you listen to me and you understand who I am, you understand that I want you to understand what I'm saying. And if you can't understand it, I'm begging you, please just accept that this is how I understand. And that will help us get along. And if it's something you can't accept, that's what my understanding is, then I think we're gonna have to do baby steps until we can get to a place where we're not, trying to figure out how much we agree or disagree about each other's beliefs or each other's past or each other's
Right.
philosophy or on and on and on.
Right. 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 I love that you're bringing this forward because what I'm committed to is the relationship, right? And the disagreement is typically either just an ingrained belief that has been, one, hard won out of experience, right? And there's so much more, right? That gets in the way of our not being, not you and I, but others. Conflict is life, right? And conflict can really be productive
Well,
if
Lori,
we
I'm
can.
gonna I'm gonna have to interject on you because my experience has been with you that forces me to do things that I don't want to do sometimes. Yours before it's relationship, it's communication and trust. You're like a stickler for good communication,
Yep.
effective communication for sure,
Yep.
and building trust that you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do, and I can trust that it's gonna be done.
Yep.
So your relationships are not built on just I'm going to accept you as you are and you can do what you want. Your relationships are built on I'd like to build a certain level of trust with you based on our communications and spending time trying to figure out what we need to steer clear of and how we
Right.
can come to terms on, can we work together?
Yep.
Is there a way for us to work together? Because if we can't work together, I can't help you, you can't help me.
Yeah.
That's what I get from you. And that's
Yeah.
why I
Well,
said I was so careful about you in this pro athlete space, because I'm like, you're forcing us to do something that we do, but you're breaking it down to almost, and not in a chauvinistic or misogynistic kind of way, but women and men communicate different. Okay.
hmm
But when
absolutely.
women try to force men to communicate a certain way, that's when they run into he's not communicating with me. It's like, no, he is, but he's not doing it the way that you're trying to force him. Like, say it this way. Well, this is how I say it. And this
Yeah.
is what it means to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to your point, I mean, I think that you and I, when we hadn't met in a really long time, and we sat down at breakfast, and you said something like, "What I know about you, Lori, is that I got to be on time with you." And
So that
if
was
you
there. So I was early. I was 15 minutes early.
Yeah, 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 and I appreciated that, right? But you were speaking my love language, right? And that signaled to me, wow, he's reaching out to me, right? And I hope that I hope you feel heard by me, because I think one of the things that, whether it's men and women, or when there is conflict, even if there is trust, you can have conflict in a healthy way, right? So, like, on this call right before I got on here, when I was talking to you about the gentleman that I just reconnected with, we were just kind of having casual conversation, and he said, "Well, how long have you been married?" And I said, 31 years. And he said, "Wow." And I said, "We just have agreed to not make each other wrong." And he's like, "What?" And he said, "Wow." And then I said something else. And I said, "Well, before I got married with Larry, I asked Larry to make an agreement with me. And that was that we say the things that we most don't want to say to each other." And that one was, that was, yeah, that's kind of, makes me want to contract, right? Because we're taught, oh, you don't want to say the things that people don't want to hear. But part of our commitment was to really be transparent, vulnerable with one another, and to say the things that, I feel this way. And it occurred to me that, you were like making me wrong at that point, or whatever it was, right? That has been a really good guiding force for our relationship. Won't work for everybody, because honey, do I look fat? and and he's like, "You look
Cut,
great."
cut.
I was
As a
like,
matter of
"Well,
fact,
are
I
you
think
telling
that's a
me the
good,
thing you don't? Are
that's
you
a
telling me
perfect
the
time
thing?"
for a break. That's a perfect time for a break right there. Because my wife would be like, "What did you just say? You better never answer that question." No, we're brutally honest with each other too, to the point where you can lose the sensitivity of
Sometimes
of being so honest that now you're not being kind. Okay. And the gentleness when you lose it with women, she better be one of those that likes it rough. Cause if gentleness is a part of her love language and you don't have it, you got a problem.
there's no way to simplify all of this, right? We
No,
are we
no,
are
no,
we are so
no,
deeply
no.
complex. We are
Yeah.
so,
Read the
you
room.
know,
You say, read the room, read the room, read the tea
yeah.
leaves.
Yeah. And people will let you know, verbally or non-verbally, if they're checked in or they're checked out. Seriously.
I
Right.
love
So
people that don't let you know, right? That they're indomitable. They just endure so much, and you just know that like you're being a jerk or someone's being a jerk to them, and they just don't show it, right? They're just like, it's not worth me showing you the obvious. You're not being, a team player here. You're being very selfish, and I don't need to reciprocate, right?
yeah.
So I learned well, my wife says I never learned. My dad used to say, "You're gonna learn," and then my wife says, "Well, your dad was wrong, but you don't learn. You just keep doing the same thing over and over and over." Who has the patience to deal with people like that? But we're gonna have to take a break. Audience, if you've checked out, if it's just been too much monologue and not enough dialogue, and too much of Lori and I gushing over each other. We're trying to basically get to a place where if you want to join the conversation and you feel like it's a conversation that can help you build that trust and be a better communicator, to find out if there can be trust with somebody in your life that you've been wondering, how can I better communicate with this person? We're like, Mutt and Jeff here, we're totally opposites, but we found a way to embrace each other and found a way to affirm each other. And it's working, right? Um, do we always agree? Absolutely not. Not with Lori. Lori's not gonna give you a pass. She's gonna let you know, and then she's gonna push back. I push back on
And
a lot
so
of
do
things.
you. Yeah.
Yes. And what I want to know right now
My
is, all
sparring partner,
no,
man.
no, no, no. You're not swinging in the air. You're connecting with those blows. But tell me this, Lori. So for the audience sake, and this, we're going to, of course, go through this and see what's usable and what isn't. But for the audience sake, Do you think we touched on some things that you can get anything from this that if not from the verbal because we don't have our lighting together, from an audio, and then put some pictures with you dancing? Because there's some part we talk about. I was a dancer. When your guy starts to edit this, can
We'll
we
see what.
find some stills?
Yeah, I think that there'll be some B-roll that I've never seen. Actually, the practice that we did, I didn't actually watch it because it was a practice, right? So I need to go take a look at it if it's still up to see what kind of B-roll that they put in. But yeah, I think we got the beginning was a little, we had some funny moments in the beginning. Felt a little
Choppy.
It was a little choppy, but I'm not worried about it. We'll just, we'll use what's good. How is it for you? How did it feel for you?
No, I feel that I feel good about it. I feel like I'm burnt out right now. I feel like we went deep, and
Yeah.
I think we got some intensity. I
Yeah.
think anybody listening can hear the genuineness. It's
Mhm.
it was no fluff. It was no faking it. There was some masking on my part because there were some areas that were sensitive to me because I don't know exactly who our audience is, right? So I was a little
Well,
guarded.
it's gonna be on Apple and Spotify. So
Well,
whoever
I was
is,
guarded in some areas. I mean,
yeah.
if you Google me, you'll see some crazy stuff out there. So yeah, I liked it. I liked it. I like everything about it. I think what I like most about it is you see, if you can't be this way with whoever is sitting in my seat, it's gonna be awkward.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is you uncut,
Mhm.
and this is you that can interview anyone. Okay.
Mhm.
But when you
Mhm.
get away from this space, I think it starts to be masking, you know, and that's people not going to tune in and stay tuned. When you were like you are, they're like, okay, now we put so we don't talk about all your credentials. We put that in writing. And that's a roll
Yeah.
scrolling down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not you
I
audibly
don't think I
saying
did. I don't think
you
we did
did.
talk. Yeah.
I tried to stop you and then you stopped yourself because I was trying to go at what makes our exchange here, what we have here magic is you got two high performers that didn't go back into the good old days. That's so overdone.
No.
That's just too overdone. And that's why when you bring in Clippers or NBA, too much of it, it's just like there's too
No,
much
I
of it.
get. I know.
It's saturated.
I think we've buried that one. I think
That's
we
what
don't have to
Beyond the Game
worry.
is all about. Is
Yeah.
don't mention. Let me see who you are without the basketball. Let me see who you are without the football. Let me see who you are without the
Right.
bat. Let me see who you are without
Right.
the mic and
Right.
singing. And if you're a comedian, now, let me see who you really are. Without the jokes. Put it down. Just put it down, because you're gonna eventually have to transition away from that. You can't be that performer for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, And that's all
And
this is
yet it
about.
comes in handy for podcasts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you told me to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, Stefan, it was so great to have you here today. I love the way that we engage one another. I always notice that my armpits are just a little sweatier than when we started, but I love it. You challenge me. Thank you so much for being here.
No, you're awesome. And thank you for coaching me through this session and not making it look like you're coaching it. You made it look so easy. So any of you guys out there that come behind me, that's what a session is like with Lori. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a lot out of it. You're not going to even know that it's happening until it's afterwards. And then she's going to send you the email and say, here are the things I learned about you that I didn't know. And thank you for sharing. But anyway, you're going to like it, guys. And the audience, thank you for having me. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lori.
And
Thank
thank you all for your time. Sometimes growth means creating a completely new game plan for your life. So, if something in this conversation resonated with you, I invite you to open the Unbound Compass, a map designed to help you see where you are, what's shifting, and where you may be ready to expand next. Your old game plan got you here successfully, and the Unbound Compass helps you discover what comes next. It only takes about 5 minutes. And as always, thank you for joining us, and I hope to talk with you soon.